So here on top are a selection of some Tencent products. On the bottom is an illustrative example of markets outside of China, including Indonesia, US, and Europe, how different companies are positioned across different internet and tech verticals. So when we look at the bottom, generally speaking, what you have are individual category leaders. You might have somebody who's very, very strong in social networking, maybe a Line or a Facebook, somebody who's very strong in entertainment, maybe a YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Very seldomly would you see one company that traverses across different verticals. In China, that picture is very different. In China, we at Tencent actually have leading position across multiple internet verticals. So for example, in the SNS space, we run WeChat, which has about 1 billion monthly active users. We run QQ Messenger, which has about 800 million active users. In the entertainment space, we have the, can I get the last? Okay. In the entertainment space, we actually have the largest streaming video service by paying subscriber base. We're also the largest gaming studio, globally speaking. And we basically have leading position across other verticals as well. And if there are certain things that we don't do ourselves, we basically do those through investments, particularly in lifestyle services. So when you take all of these together, what you see is this picture. So this is across time, how people have been spending their time on mobile internet. Basically right now, every single day, people who are on their smartphones, they spend over 50% of their time on at least one Tencent product. And that, again, is because we do have a full suite of offerings and because we have leading position across all of these. Now, I've talked quite a bit already about kind of our presence in China. I just want to highlight a little bit, globally speaking, what is our roadmap as well as our map. So globally speaking, we actually have offices throughout Asia, in North America. What we're not listing here is actually we also have offices in Europe as well as in Africa. Globally speaking, every single day, about 800 million people are using our products and services. So that's basically 3 times the entire population of Indonesia every single day using a Tencent product. Here in Indonesia, you might be familiar with some of these. Yeah? So we're splitting here between top and bottom. Up top are products that we actually run and operate ourselves. So those include WeChat, Jukes, Voov, Arena of Valor, a game, as well as PUBG. On the bottom, so while those are products that we actually run and operate ourselves, there are other areas in which we actually participate via investments, particularly, as you might know some of these, in Gojek, in JD.com, in Shopee, etc. Now I want to shift focus a little bit to talk about China and how we see similarities in terms of growth of the internet sector to Indonesia when compared to Indonesia. So this is a chart that basically looks at penetration rate of internet penetration rate as a total percentage of the population, as well as just total internet users and mobile internet users. What we're seeing obviously is very, very strong growth. Currently in China, out of 1.4 billion people, the total internet penetration rate is about 60%, so about 800 million people are online, and about 98% of that are on mobile. Yeah, not exclusively on mobile, but they are on mobile. What's interesting though is if we were to look a few years back, if we were to look a few years back to 2011, some of these numbers might actually resonate with you. So when we look at particularly on overall internet penetration, as well as mobile internet penetration, what we see is that there are very, very close similarities between what's happening currently here in Indonesia versus what the picture and what the landscape looked like in China roughly 7 years ago. So why does that matter, right? I think one of the things I want to share is how quickly things have changed in China in just the past 7 years. So this is an article from about 7 to 8 years ago. That talks about copying to China. Right? So for a very long time, there was an overarching sense that a lot of the products in China were just copycats of overseas companies. So for example, if overseas there is a YouTube, in China there was a Youku. If overseas there was a Facebook, overseas in China there was a Renren. In overseas markets, there was Twitter. In China, there was a Weibo. I think from a high-level perspective, that might be broadly true in terms of referencing business models. But obviously, I think this simplification of copying to China discounts the fact that a lot of these Chinese companies have to innovate locally. They have to know and understand the local market to adapt and to grow based on the China situation. Nonetheless, that was what it was, the overarching kind of dogma, if you may, from about 7 years ago. Now, however, things have changed. Right? So this is an article actually just from last year from Anderson Horowitz, they're a very big venture capital firm in Silicon Valley, that talks about actually copying from China. So things have changed, right? The entire shift, the wave has shifted from copying to and now copying from. And some of these actually are very much related to the work that we do at Tencent. So for example, WeChat, our messaging service, grew in the very early beginnings, was actually developed as a messaging service, but it has now really grown into a full suite of lifestyle services. And what we're seeing is, for example, Facebook Messenger is beginning to reference some of the features that we have added. Similarly, in China, there is a mobike service where you can actually use your smartphone, go anywhere on the sidewalk, scan a bicycle, and take it for a ride. Right? We're also seeing a very similar replica of that in the US, in LimeBike. Similarly then in China, we have WeChat Payment, a mobile payment service. Here, obviously, I think many of you are very familiar with a number of different mobile services as well, mobile payment services as well. In China, we have WeChat Pay. Overseas, let's say in the US, we can reference basically a Venmo. Yeah. So things are beginning to change. Now I want to talk about, well, over the past 7 years, what has Tencent really done in order to lead this change, first in China? So what did we do in 2011? Great. So WeChat was actually developed and launched 7 years ago. Okay? In the past 7 years, we've grown from 0 to 1 billion monthly active users, out of which about 90% of them are active on the platform every single day. So I want to actually show you how WeChat has actually really grown, and like I said a little bit earlier, how it's not really just a messaging service, but it has actually grown to become a lifestyle product penetrating across multiple verticals. So instead of trying to talk about it, let me show you a quick video of what WeChat is like and how it's being used in China. Can we get the sound here, please?
Swamp monsters. But now all of a sudden, some of the features they've developed are so amazing that Western apps are trying to copy them. And the greatest example of this is WeChat. WeChat is an example of, for lack of a better word, a super app. It's a Swiss Army knife that basically does everything for you. It's your WhatsApp, Facebook, Skype, and Uber. It's your Amazon, Instagram, Venmo, and Tinder. But it's other things we don't even have apps for. There are hospitals that have built out whole appointment booking systems. There are investment services. There are even heat maps that show how crowded a place is, be it your favorite shopping mall or a popular tourist site. The list of services goes on basically forever. But it's not the variety of things you can do on WeChat that makes it so powerful. It's the fact that they're all in one app. So why does that matter? Hypothetically, imagine you're sitting at home and one day you notice your corgi is dirty. You open WeChat, hit a few buttons, and a few hours later a man shows up at your door with some shampoo and a big vacuum. Your dog gets cleaned and he looks great. You take a photo, you share it with your friends, and tag the dog cleaning business. You haven't left the app. Your friend who likes Hello Kitty and works a boring office job is slacking off at work and looking at WeChat. She sees the photo of your clean corgi. She decides she wants her poodle cleaned. She clicks the tag on your photo and orders the same service. Within seconds, the man with the big vacuum is on his way to her house. She pays him, and he's happy because he got paid instantly on WeChat. She starts chatting with you to thank you. Neither of you have left the app. While chatting, she tells you about a new hip noodle joint. She says, you have to come. It's a schlep, but you accept. She orders food while still at her desk. You order a taxi. She pays for the food. On the way to her house, the man with the big vacuum invests the money he earned from both of you into a wealth management product that's probably a little too risky. Neither of you nor the man with the big vacuum have left the app. Both of you arrive and the app tells the kitchen you're there. Your WeChat profile photo pops up on the wall. It's an old photo from the year you had that weird part in your hair. Of course she makes a comment. Your food is served. You notice your meat is a bit overcooked, so you snap a photo and post a disparaging restaurant review. You're already on your phone and you remember you still owe your friend money because she paid. You transfer her money. Neither of you, the man with the big vacuum, nor the restaurant, have left the app. At the restaurant, there are no menus, there are no waiters, there is no cashier. There is only WeChat. By rolling so many functions into one single app, it's altered the concept of virality. It's no longer just videos or images or tweets that can go viral. It's a dog washer, noodles, all sorts of companies and products that get the push of a social network. Here in China, that network is 700 million people.
Can I get the next slide, please? Thank you. So that all started from zero just 7 years ago. It has actually grown into one single super app where if you want to call a taxi, go to a restaurant, pay for food, pay your friends, invest in a fund, everything, all of those things are actually happening in just one application and only took place over the past 7 years. But all of these benefits are obviously very good for users, right? So every one of us, we're using the app every single day, and they're huge conveniences. But there are also other implications in which, as we continue to grow the ecosystem, there are positive implications and benefits also for corporates. So it's not only a 2C model, but also a 2B model. So out of those, there are three things that really come to mind. One is on payments, second is on our cloud services, and thirdly is on what we call mini programs. And I'm just going to very, very quickly go through each of these. So can I actually just get the next slide? So on payment services, just to give you a sense of how this works, within the application, there are official accounts in which their payment is already integrated. Here, there's an example of somebody looking to an official account to buy a basket of fruit. They basically click a few buttons, choose the basket that they want, confirm the order, and pay directly from within the app. Two then is also, beyond just going online, we can also go offline. So here you can actually just scan a QR code within a car to pay the driver. Another example of that being at a kiosk. Here's at a meat market. And this is actually a photo I took, which was actually just a hawker stall on the side of the street. Payment really has become fully mobile. In China right now, for over the last 2 years, I've kept a 100 RMB bill in my wallet just in case I run into a situation that doesn't take cash. And that 100 RMB bill remains in my wallet for 2 years because I've never had to use cash. China has very, very quickly, in just the past several years, turned into a mobile payment first society. Two then, as I mentioned, is on cloud services. So I'm not going to go through this. There's just a lot of numbers. But I do want to give you a case. Can I get one more, please? Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about how within WeChat itself, we're actually using cloud services and big data analytics in order to help 2B companies. So this is an example of something that we're doing with the Dubai Tourism Board in order to provide 24-hour customer service. Generally speaking, in kind of older days, what you generally would have a hotline, right? People would call and they would wait and wait and wait until somebody picks up in order to answer a question. What we've actually come to realize is that about 80% of questions that people ask the tourism board are actually overlapping questions. So questions, for example, such as weather, how do I get from the airport to, let's say, a hotel, information about certain attractions. These are very overlapping questions that a machine can actually handle much more efficiently. So what we're working with them on is to create an AI chatbot that would be based on the user's LBS data, on their location-based services data, will help prioritize and say, the person who's asking this question currently, is that person in Dubai or not? If they are already in Dubai, then the priority to answer the question must be higher. because they're already in market, they're already there to travel, and they want answers immediately. Second then is that a question in which our AI technology can actually answer, because we are accumulating and learning from the questions that have been gathered throughout time. Thirdly then is, if not, then as a last resort, we would divert those questions to somebody on a phone to answer those questions manually. So by doing that, we actually improve on both efficiency for the business. They don't have to have so many people running the customer service. Instead, and also at the same time, from a user's perspective, they'll be able to get more timely and immediate response at the tap of their fingertip within WeChat. Lastly, I want to talk about mini programs. Mini programs could be a little bit difficult to grasp as a concept. But in short, what they are is that there are software that do not require to be downloaded onto your phone. Instead, from within the WeChat environment, you can pull up a mini program and use the service just as though it was a mobile application. So let me show you an example of this. Can I click one more, please? So on the left-hand side here is actually the application for a securities app. So you can go on there and check your stocks and check what's happening in the market. And on the right-hand side is the mini program version of that. What you see essentially is that from a UI perspective, from a user interface perspective, from a feature perspective, you can basically have the same thing. You can have all of your stocks, you can check the indexes, you can read the news. The benefit of actually having a mini program, however, is that you don't have to download the application. And that's a very common problem that we see both in China as well as in Indonesia. I'm sure many of you, when you go and download an app, one of the first things that you would consider is, well, how big is the application? If the application is going to take 100 megs or 200 megs, the second question is, how much do I need this? How frequently will I use it? If it's not something that you're going to be using every single day, you likely would not want to download it onto your phone. However, if you don't have the service on your phone, at the moment when you need it and you go to a mobile websites, generally speaking, do not offer the same type of experience, seamless experience of what a mobile application can do. And so this is a middle ground in order to resolve that conflict. So I've talked a lot about China. I want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing here in Indonesia, but not only what, but also why, and why it's important for us to continue to do this. So I want to talk about Jukes in particular. Can I just get a show of hands here? How many people have heard about Jukes? That's basically everyone, great. So Jukes is available as a freemium streaming music service across Southeast Asia. We actually launched here in Indonesia back in October of 2015. We just celebrated our 3rd year anniversary about 2 weeks ago. What is Jukes? So many of you might know Jukes as a streaming music platform. You go on the platform, you listen to music. What we like to say is that Jukes is actually a pan-entertainment platform. It's not just about listening to music files, but rather there are 5 use cases that we look to fulfill, including listening, reading news articles, watching music videos, interacting with your artist through live chat, as well as singing on our karaoke feature. Now, ever since we entered the market here, we've been very fortunate to have the support of Indonesian users in such a way that across our awareness, our usage, as well as our satisfaction, we've been able to become #1 here in Indonesia. Thank you. But more importantly is why, right? Why did we choose to do this? What are the opportunities? What are the implications, maybe for some of you even, in the future? One of the reasons why we chose to actually launch here in Indonesia was because of the opportunity. One of the things that we've seen, and there are 3 drivers of this, one of the things that we've seen is actually on data costs, where compared to other markets, the cost of data here in Indonesia actually tends to be quite low. 2 then is growth in terms of the speed of internet connectivity. So I actually first came to Indonesia roughly about 5 years ago, and I remember how difficult it was to even just get onto a 3G network. Nowadays, it's so much easier. I think everywhere you go, more or less, you would have quite reliable LTE networks. And we have seen that growth in connectivity and speeds over the past few years. Thirdly, then, is actually on hardware, right? So you can buy data and you can have high speeds, but you still need a phone. You still need to have a good enough phone to be able to access mobile internet and mobile services. One of the things that we've seen also over the past few years is smartphones have gotten more powerful, yet at the same time, less expensive. So when we take these factors all into consideration, it makes for a perfect situation for mobile internet adoption. And that's why we're seeing also the immense growth in this market when it comes to users going onto the mobile internet. Moreover, if we look at just the mobile internet space, here we're comparing data between Indonesia and the US. Indonesian users basically spend double the amount of time that American users do on their mobile phone. One of the reasons for that is because Indonesia, very similar to China, is a mobile-first market. Many people's first endeavor and first interaction with the internet was actually not through a desktop computer, but rather through their phone. And that's why the level of stickiness and engagement is so high. However, even though we're seeing all these fundamentals in terms of stickiness, in terms of data growth, in terms of speed, we're seeing very, very strong fundamentals across the board. However, when we look at the internet sector here in Indonesia, it really only still makes up only roughly 1% of overall GDP, compared to about 5.5% in China, 4.7% in the US and Japan. This, again, is one of the reasons for why we believe very, very strongly in this market and for future growth and why we decided to come here. But beyond that then is, well, Indonesia overall looks like a very interesting market. I'm sure many of you are probably thinking about areas in which you can add value, areas in which you could innovate, areas in which some of you might be able to be entrepreneurs by yourself. For us, when we looked at the market, we saw that it was very interesting, but we still had to decide, well, what should we do? Where was the opportunity? Now, as you may remember from one of the earlier slides that I showed, at Tencent in China, we're very, very strong in social networking, and we're also very, very strong in entertainment. So those are our core capabilities. At the same time, when we looked at the Indonesian market, one of the things that we realized is just how much people love music. So when you look at across different types of metrics on how much people listen to music, how much they're engaged with music, it very, very quickly became very evident that it was one of the most important forms of entertainment that people wanted. Moreover then, is if you look at internet usage, what we saw was that, hey, everybody really only uses a few services on their phone every single day. You might have a chat app, a social app, maybe a Facebook and Instagram. You might watch some videos, and then you listen to music. In fact, music consumption every single day makes up about 1 hour and 20 minutes roughly. Right? So we saw that the market opportunity is very strong. We also saw that music as a demand for music was very, very big. And so these are some of the driving factors for why we decided to launch Jukes here in Indonesia. Lastly here, I also want to show just a little bit in terms of the growth of the market. So on the left-hand side, we're looking, and this isn't just Indonesia, this is across Asia, including Philippines, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Thailand. What we see is that the number of users who use streaming music has been growing at about 13% per year. Also, when we look at, from a business perspective and on revenues, streaming music about roughly 2 years ago already became the largest source of revenue generation in the music industry, overtaking music downloads, overtaking mobile VAS, such as ringback tones, etc. So that basically highlights what is Jukes, as well as the opportunity that we saw in this market, and how we actually made the decision to come. But I think another dimension that's very important to consider is beyond business, beyond building a business and beyond revenues, how is it that we're actually helping push forward the creative industry here in Indonesia? One of the most difficult things about running a music service is that we're actually competing with a lot of piracy. We're competing with a lot of illegal downloads, right? But that to us is important because we actually launched a very similar music service in China over 10 years ago. We also face a very similar situation where there was a lot of piracy, and that has changed. And we believe that will change here as well. But we have to be part of that agent of change rather than to be a passive bystander of that. So one of the important things that we do here is to make sure that we work with all of the relevant rights owners. So we work with all of the international as well as local record labels, the rights owners such as WAMI as well as Asiri. We work with international aggregators. We want to make sure that we provide a platform for which artists can have a legal way of being discovered. Users can have a legal and seamless way of being able to enjoy entertainment. Nonetheless, that has to be a positive outcome for everybody involved, or otherwise the creative industry cannot grow. So that to us continues to be a very important thing to make sure that we're contributing to the creative industries. And that includes actually just roughly 2 weeks ago, we finished our first ever nationwide digital karaoke contest. Anybody here participated in the Juice Karaoke Superstar competition? Did anybody sing? I see some shy hands going up. I think like people aren't really willing to admit that they were singing maybe in their bathroom or something. But we actually just concluded this roughly about 2 weeks ago. And the winner, Yotari, basically went through roughly a 7-week competition. At the end, based on a combination of users' votes, was able to distinguish herself as the winner. And she's actually signing a record deal with Warner Music, the music label. So again, this is one of the ways in which we really want to contribute. We want to be a platform for the creative industries, for people who are passionate about music to have a legal platform to be discovered. So this is actually my last slide. Thank you, everybody, for coming again. If any of you are interested, go into the Jukes app, enter the word Annual Creativation, and you'll get free VIP. Thank you very much, everyone.